A recursive function is a function that solves a problem by solving smaller instances of the same problem. A recursive fiction, then, is a story that reaches its solution by solving smaller applications of its overarching story. A skilled recursive fiction, however, conceals the original problem until the very end. You'll never quite see all you were doing was solving the same problem over and over until you reach the original function and see that everything was just an echo of that original, reimagined and replayed so that you could understand the overarching problem. There are many ways of doing this. Gintama asks that the student behead the teacher, and that the villain who yearns for emptiness learn that there is no escape from sorrow. Gintoki must do this in every arc that is serious, and in some arcs that are comedic, but there's no escaping it. Just as time does not truly pass in Gintama until the death of the shogun, neither can he leave the cycle that demands he kill the mentor. It's because he failed to do it right. This is a classic time loop maneuver, refusing to move forward until the main character can correct his fundamental failure. It's not about killing. It's about who you are when you kill someone. It's not about dying. It's about who you are at the moment of your death. It's not about the cycle. It's about who you are when you break it. This is one way of thinking about it. It is not the way that regression stories typically treat it. A main character who exists with the premise, "I already know how it ends," can then make a judgment call about their own ending, whether they like that original ending or whether they hate it, whether it's something they can live with one more time. This judgment call is the first recursion. The stepmother's Martian opens over Shuri's corpse. Dead from a wrecked carriage after her adopted children had all told her how much they hated her and were glad she would soon be gone from their life. So you think she'd be pretty happy to redo her life. Oh wait, that's not the opening of the manhwa. That's the point of recursion. My mistake. The opening of the manhwa is a beautiful fairy tale story about a girl who had already become trapped, and so rather than being free to change her life through recursion, is simply reincarnated back inside the cage. So the first thing Shuri realizes upon coming back to life is that the shackles have been relocked around her ankles. What has she done to deserve this? And here's the answer. Nothing. She became the Marchess because her husband had thought his children immature and untrustworthy, and he'd been exactly right on all counts. It's just her bad luck that he asked her to lay her life down for the good of his family. If only she'd been less beautiful, less smart, less mature for her age, maybe he wouldn't have married her, and maybe he'd have trapped some other girl in this hell instead. Or maybe she just would have died sooner. The Stepmother's Martian is a story about Shuri desperately trying to help her stepchildren grow up, mature, get good marriages, and find good futures. She takes her responsibilities so painfully seriously that it becomes inescapably bitter to think that she is fulfilling the dying wish of their piece of shit father who ruined her life. Not just hypothetically, but provably. He did create a world where she died miserably directly because of him. She knows it. But what's she going to do? Be irresponsible? Give up? In the Utena movie, Adolescence of Utena, the world of the anime series has been reconstructed, except this time Akio is dead. So is Toga. It's an answer to an unasked demand of the anime, sort of a variation of the beautiful question, why does Sisyphus keep pushing that rock? Is he stupid? Even with the specific men who had been highest in Hotori's hierarchy gone, nothing has changed. The story repeats, treating the rotting corpse of the prince as if it's the same as a living prince, because it is. You can't just reject the prince, you have to reject the duels. You can't just reject the duels, you have to reject the school. You can't just reject the school. You have to reject the entire world. And so in Utena, even the act of rejecting the world becomes something you have to keep doing. When Shuri speaks to another mother or daughter, she is speaking to versions of herself, solving problems for them that are smaller in nature than the great indignity which has happened to her, but no less sad, no less real. When Utena duels people, the duels are reflections of the type of arrogance that a prince might have. Whenever she says, "That's not what a prince should be," she is drawing a tighter and tighter circle around herself, eliminating more and more of the entire world every time she realizes that one of them has been cruel to Anthe in such a specific, mundane way. And sometimes she doesn't realize it at all, and it's left to the Shadow Girls to cheerfully shake their heads and giggle and say, "Was that really okay?" All until the candles go out, and even the Shadow Girls go silent, and it's just Anthe. "Hey, Anthe. Is that really okay? Seeing yourself in the fatted cow. Is that really okay?" This puzzle also plays out in Umineko, where every loop is designed to show that even with a different person holding the gun, the same sins kill all. But that's for its own video. The Apothecary Diaries is a story about a girl whose special interest is poison. She's a bright and intelligent young lady who was one day kidnapped from her life in the city and sold into being a servant in the rear palace. From that position, she ends up recruited as a lady-in-waiting to one of the favored concubines, and becomes endlessly involved in helping solve poison, medicine, and chemistry-related mysteries. Much, much later than all that, however, there is a specific incident. A servant girl is pulled from the waters of the moat that separates the inner palace from the rest of the world. And the manager of the inner palace, her prospective love interest, turns to her and says, "What do you think, Mao? Was it suicide? Or was it murder?" Her first answer is this: look at the servant girl's fingers. Scrapped. Bloody. The water must have been so cold. She must have desperately tried to climb back up the stone walls of the palace. In that moment where it was already too late, she must have struggled to live. Now let's return to the beginning. Realizing that the reason why every infant in the rear palace has died is because of a poisonous makeup powder that many of the women wear, Mao Mao decides to try and tell both concubines that have infants to try and save the children. She says this of the powder: trading life for beauty and losing both. While both concubines receive the information, only one of them acts on it. The princess lives, the prince dies. Ignorance is truly a sin, Gyokyo sighs. If the other consort had taken the words more seriously, then her son would still be alive. But how can she be expected to trust a suspicious message when she is in the rear court, a nest of vipers? How can she be expected to act rationally while her son dies in her arms, sickened by the very powder she wears on her cheeks? One of the things that sets Apothecary Diaries apart from other mystery stories is the lack of a guarantee of a body. Sometimes Mao Mao is asked to save someone. Sometimes she is asked if it is possible to heal someone. Sometimes she is asked of a dead body, is it possible that anyone could have saved them? And often she keeps her mouth firmly shut, lies to her superiors about the answers she has divined. Apothecary. Is it possible to cure sleepwalking? The medical answer to that: no. Easy. Simple. But the true answer to that is yes. The concubine who is sleepwalking is not behaving irrationally, overcome by grief or hysteria. She is deliberately showing herself to be low value because she wants to leave the rear palace. Mao Mao only speaks of it after the concubine has already made her escape. Truth is not a value that she treats with any reverence. What is the use of speaking speculation? How envious that the doors forever shut to other concubines can open for this one. Apothecary, why have you concealed that the poisoned bowls were switched? This time, the young concubine was being bullied by her maid, the very maid who switched the bowls and accidentally caused you to drink deadly poison. Why did you take every action to conceal her mistake? The answer is thus. Jinshi, the life of a poison tester is nothing when compared to a concubine's. When Mao Mao is asked to point a finger at a poisoner, she does it with the knowledge that she is condemning someone to die. There is no concealment of arrest, brought to justice. They'll be put to trial. None of that exists, even in implication. The refuge that other detective stories use to avoid looking beyond the truth of the moment is denied. When asked to find a sinner, her world becomes completely black and white. Tell the truth and condemn someone to execution, or lie. And so when she looks at the various servants of the palace, she never mistakes who her own mirrors are. She is not the young concubine, sad and bullied. She is the poison eater. Her reflection is in the lady who could have died over one bowl of soup. When Mao Mao finally leaves the palace after 10 months for a visit to her home, she looks over the pleasure district that she grew up in, breathes it in. While she is there, a possible double suicide occurs and she rushes in, managing to save both people, the courtesan and her client, both of whom were collapsed and surrounded by the smell of tobacco and alcohol. The story does come together in her mind after a young girl tries to kill the man a second time, crying tears of fury. Not a double suicide, but a deliberate homicide. The man was prone to promising he'd buy out a courtesan and take her with him, only to renge at the last minute, breaking her heart and sending her into despair. No one in that whole brothel had liked him. Maybe even everyone in that brothel had hoped he'd really die, even if it meant having the scandal of a rich man's son dead in their house. Maybe they'd even gone further and all helped the one courtesan who'd absolutely tried to kill him. Never speaking of her conclusion, only having to shrug and say, it must have been fate that she was there, and they both lived. The rear palace and the red light district are the same in her eyes, breathing in poison every day until you yourself become poison. The cage that she'd thought she'd escaped is here, too, where she grew up. Is that what life is? Everyone just being forced to live in a poisonous place until they die? The climax of the first 12 episodes of the anime comes from the death of a baby 17 years ago. It was, in the end, a terrible accident. And yet that accident drove its perpetrator to agony with her guilt, caused Mao Mao's adoptive father to be punished with a crippling, and resulted in the baby's mother spending another 16 years in the closed walls of the rear garden, when she had expected to be able to leave right away. And it resulted in a servant girl drowned. In order for one of two imperial babies to live, suffering was passed down like water until it hit the bottom. A suicide to conceal her mistress's secrets. Unasked for. The gulf between heaven and earth, seen only when she was helped up the wall and, with assistance, jumped. Something she only regretted once she felt how cold the water was. In the second season of the anime, Mao Mao becomes aware of the likely culprit of the very person who likely arranged for a series of murders and even the attempted murder of her own boss. She tells him everything else, but she keeps the name off of her lips. The confirmation that the mastermind is a killer is not enough to motivate her to turn her in. Everyone has their own circumstances, after all. When asked whether to sympathize with dead or sickened and unconscious palace officials, or with the secretary who had poisoned them, isn't there only one possible answer? And this extends even further. Even the attempted murder of Jinshi, which would have succeeded without Mao Mao's direct interference, is not enough to loosen her lips. It's not about killing. It's about whether or not you have the power to declare an execution with a single word. It's not about dying. It's about who you know is at fault for your and your family's suffering. Mao Mao's mother was a courtesan who got pregnant, got syphilis, sickened, and fell apart. But the point of that isn't the order of the events, but discerning greed from ill fortune, tragedy from the mere whims of fate. Her mother got pregnant on purpose because she wanted to lower her own value as a courtesan because she wanted to marry Mao Mao's biological father. It's just that he was called away and didn't return for 3 years, so by that point she'd been forced into riskier sex work, gotten syphilis, and become enraged and maddened by being abandoned. But is it really just that? If it's just that, why can no one forgive him? And the answer is, it's because he lacked consideration. Not thinking of what it meant that she'd let him sleep with her. Unable to understand a love confession not conveyed out loud, even when he'd fallen in love with someone who only spoke through offerings of go and elephant chess. And when he'd come back, his daughter pitied him, feared him, hated him, and rejected him. All for that sin of ignorance. After the servant girl is found drowned in the water, Mao Mao talks about execution methods. Poison, she says. It's not that I want to die, you see, but if one day I make a mistake punishable by death and you order my execution, I'd like to be able to eat poison. I would never do that, Jinshi says. And she responds, it's not about would or wouldn't. It's about can or cannot. Jinshi has many cruel parallels that surround his part in all of this. When it comes to romance, Mao Mao will often compare him to a woman and say that he's pretty, or that even a man would want to sleep with him. But when it comes to his station, he is mirrored by Lacan, Mao Mao's biological father, who in a moment of irresponsibility and carelessness ruined the life of the woman he loved. All because he didn't realize what having no virtue would do to a courtesan. And he is also mirrored by the late, unmissed emperor who he resembles in his looks, and who resulted in the current emperor being only 10 years younger than his own mother. Jinshi wants Mao Mao to see him as a potential partner, but he cannot escape the truth. When she looks in the water, she sees a woman who cut off her daughter's pinky with a knife because she couldn't take it, because responsibility, power, and misery had bled and run all the way down from the palace into the dark alleys of the pleasure district. When it comes to speaking the truth, Mao Mao is flexible. When it comes to knowing the truth, Mao Mao is intractable. Because she is the Sherlock to Jinshi's Watson, because she sees hearts with the same clarity that she sees poisonous mushrooms, the chasm that Jinshi fears she will one day see between him and her and grow to hate has, from day one, always been visible. Whether she lives in the pleasure district or the palace, whether she works as an apothecary for a brothel or a lady-in-waiting for the most favored concubine of the imperial court, whether she'd succeeded at becoming a court lady, he will never be able to be her equal. So let's talk about Gintama. We're going to skip over a lot of stuff that's just mirrors of other stuff, so just picture this in your head. Our main character has become ensnared in endless wire. It's impossible for him to move forward, and yet he keeps trying. Why? Our villain of the arc must demand of him. Let me recall this line from my memory. Instead of the wires that are slowly cutting him into pieces, he is compelled by much more and more invisible wires that tie him to his friends and family, that pull him forward. Even if he wants to stop moving, he can't. Dragged forward painfully, bloodied by the inability to let go, and yet only upright because it's impossible for him to let go. Sisyphus, why don't you just stop pushing that rock? Are you stupid? Why must Shuri love her stepchildren, the eldest who is barely 2 years younger than her? Why treat them well? Why try again when she'd stumbled and fallen and bled for them already? Why does Mao Mao continue to stay at the palace even after she becomes capable of going home? Come on, Utena. She just betrayed you. She'll betray you every time. Are you really going to keep running after her? When Mao Mao went to save the double suicide of the courtesan and the client, she must have seen her mother in the woman, overcome with hate, and her father in the man who had broken his promise, and herself in the young girl with the knife. But she saved them anyway, and she reached out a hand to her biological father, and she tends her mother, and she acted to save the life of the babies in the imperial court that she had been kidnapped and sold into. Staring at a wretched mirror, forced to forever see that the real problem is inescapable, that the cage is large enough to envelop the entire world. I guess a recursive function only has one solution after all. When killing, you have to be someone aware of who you point the knife at. When dying, you still have to keep moving towards what you love. When breaking the cycle, your only reward will be those bonds, invisible yet capable of dragging you forward through your own blood and decay. And still, feeling those strings, every time Mao Mao takes another step forward, helps another lady, solves another problem, saves another life, because she's aware of her relative power, because she's not careless, because she's unable to be ignorant of the sins of the world, because she wants to help, she'll stay. They all will. Such is the path forged from rejecting your own reflection. Hi, I'm Czar, and this is my channel where I talk about anime, the occasional video game, and storytelling devices. Thank you all so much for liking the last video so much, and for the first 1,000 subscribers. See you next time.